In just a matter of hours, the Middle East was pushed to the edge of a regional war that could reshape the global order. What began on February 28, 2026 as a coordinated U.S.-Israeli strike on Iranian strategic targets rapidly exploded into one of the most dangerous military escalations in modern history. What just happened at the center of this crisis was the reported killing of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in a joint U.S.-Israeli operation. That single event sent shockwaves across the region. From Washington to Jerusalem, from Riyadh to Doha, governments and military command centers were suddenly forced into emergency mode. Iran state media confirmed the death, declared a period of national mourning, and warned that the response would be decisive, severe, and without mercy. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, announced what it described as its most ferocious offensive ever against U.S. military infrastructure in the Middle East. Iranian officials claimed strikes were launched against as many as 27 American bases across the region, framing the attacks as direct retribution for the killing of Iran's supreme leader and the assault on Iranian territory. Whether every claim could be independently verified or not, the message was unmistakable. This was no longer a limited strike. This was a regional confrontation. For years, tensions between Iran, the United States, and Israel had been building beneath the surface through proxy wars, covert operations, cyber attacks, assassinations, nuclear brinkmanship, and shadow conflict, stretching from Syria to the Persian Gulf. But this was different. The reported killing of Iran's top leader crossed a line that few believed could be crossed without triggering a historic response. In Tehran, the event was immediately framed not simply as an act of war, but as an attack on the core of the Islamic Republic itself. Iranian state media cast Khamenei as a martyr. The IRGC presented retaliation as a sacred duty. And across the region, military planners understood the implications instantly. If Iran responded at scale, nearly every U.S. position in the Gulf could become a target. That is exactly what appeared to happen. Missiles and armed drones were launched in waves toward American and allied military sites across multiple countries. Reports pointed to strikes or attempted strikes against installations in Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Jordan, a sweeping message that no base under the American security umbrella should consider itself beyond reach. Among the most significant reported targets was the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. In Manama, witnesses described air defenses lighting up the night sky as explosions and intercepts erupted near one of the most critical symbols of American naval power in the region. The Fifth Fleet is not just another base, it is a command hub for U.S. operations across the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and surrounding strategic waterways. Targeting it was a declaration. Iran was signaling that it was prepared to strike at the heart of the U.S. regional military posture. In Qatar, reports indicated attacks on Udeid Air Base, one of the most important American air hubs in the Middle East. This base plays a central role in surveillance, air power projection, logistics, and command operations. Any threat to Udeid carries significance far beyond Qatar itself. In Kuwait, Ali Al-Salam Air Base reportedly came under pressure as missile defenses tracked incoming threats. In the United Arab Emirates, Al Dhafra Air Base was also named among the installations facing danger as air defense systems moved to intercept hostile projectiles. Even where defenses appeared to succeed, the strategic effect remained profound. Because Iran did not need to destroy every base to change the equation. It only needed to prove that it could reach them. That is what made the retaliation so dangerous. It was not only about physical damage. It was about shattering the assumption that U.S. and allied facilities across the Gulf could operate inside a protected zone while war remained contained elsewhere. At the same time, reports of missiles and drones moving towards sites in Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and Jordan raised fears that the conflict could spill far beyond a direct U.S.-Iran exchange and drag more states into the fire. This is how regional wars begin, not always with a formal declaration, but with overlapping strikes, blurred red lines, and a growing list of governments suddenly forced to choose sides. The consequences were immediate. Across Gulf capitals, sirens sounded, air defenses activated. Civilian populations watched the sky as interceptors and explosions disrupted the normal rhythm of daily life. Families moved indoors. Flights were delayed or canceled. Markets reacted nervously. And in energy circles, one question suddenly dominated every calculation. Could this spiral threaten the world's most critical oil-producing region? That fear alone was enough to rattle global markets. In Washington, the pressure became enormous. President Donald Trump and his national security team, already facing the fallout from the initial strike on Iran, were now dealing with a fast-moving escalation that threatened to redraw the strategic map of the Middle East in real time. Inside the Situation Room, every minute mattered. Satellite feeds, missile trajectory tracking, base assessments, diplomatic back channels, and battlefield reports all merged into one terrifying reality. A decision intended to cripple Iran's strategic leadership had instead opened the door to a far wider war. International reaction was divided. Some governments supported the strike, arguing that Iran's missile capabilities and long-standing regional posture had made confrontation inevitable. Others warned that the conflict had already crossed into a far more dangerous phase, one with consequences no one could fully control. European and Asian capitals called for restraint. Regional alliances were tested, and Gulf states hosting American troops found themselves in an impossible position, tied to Washington's military architecture, but now directly exposed to Iranian retaliation. Saudi Arabia publicly condemned the strikes on Gulf territory and warned that continued escalation would carry serious consequences. Smaller states, meanwhile, faced the hard reality of becoming frontline geography in a conflict they did not fully control. The most dangerous part of this crisis is what comes next. If Iran sees the killing of its supreme leader as an existential attack, then retaliation may not end with one wave. And if the United States or Israel interprets Iran's missile campaign as the start of a broader regional offensive, then further strikes could follow in rapid succession. That creates a cycle that becomes harder to stop with each passing hour. More military exchanges could draw in additional actors. Proxy forces across the region could open new fronts. Shipping lanes could come under pressure. Energy infrastructure could become vulnerable. And any miscalculation, one missile that lands differently, one base hit more directly, one allied government pulled deeper into combat, could turn a regional crisis into a global economic and security shock. At the same time, diplomacy has not completely disappeared. Calls for mediation, ceasefires, and emergency negotiations have begun to surface in international forums. But diplomacy always struggles to breathe when missiles are still in the air and leaders are still speaking the language of vengeance. That is the real danger now. Not just the fire that has already been lit, but the possibility that no one can control where it spreads next. What happened after February 28, 2026, was not just another exchange of strikes in a volatile region. It was a moment that may redefine the balance of power in the Middle East and remind the world how quickly the distance between retaliation and full-scale war can disappear.